Hi and welcome back. This time we are developing a data table with Angular Material that has server-side pagination, so you can display all the users that we are getting from our backend, and you can paginate through the pages. So the structure of the video is, as always, first we will have a look at our video outcome, then we write or read a user story for this, and at the end we will implement our user story and close it then. Let's have a quick look what we are building in this video. So you can see we have a new button for our users here, and we have here a little drop down or select for our routes for login and register, so you can navigate through this. And if we go now to our new users route, you can see we are having displayed all our users in Angular Material table, and we can just navigate through it. So to the next page, to the last page, to the previous page, and we are always making a request to our backend. We can also say we want to have displayed 5 users per page and then navigate through all the pages. Let's start with having a short look at our story. So we are here in video 9, and now we want to paginate in the front end all our users. So we have our story. As a user, I want to be able to display all users in a table and navigate through the table so I can find the user that I'm looking for. And so we want to have a table where we display all our users with all the properties that we get, and then we want to be able to navigate through it. So for example, if there are 100 users, then we want to have displayed 10 users per page and want to go through the pages, for example. Then we have our acceptance criteria. It is a table with all users, pagination with size and page, so you can give like you want to go to the second page and you want to have displayed 10 entries or 5 entries or 2 entries. We want to use Angular Material for everything, and we want to change in our menu a drop-down for login select, so it's get a bit nicer to handle. So let's start with it, move it to doing, and go in our code. Let's start by switching to our feature branch. So when we say git status, you can see that we are on our branch develop. So we clear this up, and we can just say git-flow feature start, and now we name our new feature. So this is video 9. And now it will create a new branch video 9 or feature video 9 based on develop. And we can later finish this up with this command here. So we can clear this. So now we are on our branch, we can see it here, git status, and we are in our feature branch. So one of the first things that we want to do, we want to add here, because this is a bit messy, we can go into our front end and run and reserve, and then we can see in our front end that this is like messy. So we can delete this, and here I'm just letting run our backend server so that we can actually connect to it and get data. And here we have our front end server. So what we want to do here, we want to make it here for login and register a drop down so we can switch between these two. And for this we need Angular Material, and we can use Angular Material select. So this is a drop down. So we can see it here. We can choose here our favorite food and then go for steak, pizza, tacos, whatever, and then it's selected. So we need to import this into our module. And we can go for here, add it to here, and then into our imports. So this is our NestSelect module, and then we can go into our HTML, and first we can have a look if everything is compiled. And so we can watch it here in our browser. And now you see all the links are clutched together, so we don't want this. So what we can do is here, we can delete this and add here our met form field. So we have a met form field, and we can give this first we can give it a little style, so we can say margin left 20 pixels, so we don't clutch to this admin. But normally you would do with this classes, but just to make it easy. And we can give this a name, and we can just say login. One second. So this, and then we give it a name, login register, drop down, and then we can go for our met select, and we can give this a placeholder. So like you saw here it was the fruits. If we go to the overview, you see there we have favorite food as a placeholder. So we say we have a placeholder here. Let's just say login, whatever, doesn't really matter. And then we can have an event here, and this is selection change. So as soon if you hit a button, this event will get triggered, and then we can go and execute a function, and we can say we want to execute our navigate-to function, and we can pass here our value from our event. So now we have to create our navigate-to. So we can say navigate-to, have our value here. We can say this value here, and then we can say this.router.navigate-to, and give it here on up, and then our value. And then of course we need our constructor with our router from Angular. And this should be named navigate here. So this should work fine. And now we have here our met select. And in this we can give it a met, and we could either go for one select here or met option. And we could go for example login here and another one with register, but we could also do it a little bit differently. And we could say, or we could make this in our TypeScript file or in our component. And we could say that we have some entries here, and these are arrays, or is an array, and this array has two objects, and both object has a name, this is login, and it has a property called link, and this is login in small cases, and the same goes here for name, for register, and link is register in small case. So we can use this in small characters. And then we can just use the ng-for directive. What this does, we can loop over an array with this. So we can say let entry of entries, and now you see we have here our array from our component, our entries here. And now we just loop over it, and then we have every entry here, and this is rendering into this here. So everything that we are doing here is applied to all our objects from our array. And then we can add here or bind it to our value, and the value will be the entry.link. So every entry that we are rendering here, or every object from our array, will have value link, and if we click on it, then this will be going into this. Then this is our event.value. So this goes in our value, and our value here goes in our navigate-to method or function. And then we can display here just our entry.name. And we can have a quick look, and you see we have here our login. If we hit it, we go to our login page, and if we hit register, we route to our register page. So what we could do also is we can make this here a button. So we just say button, and we could go again with our Angular material button, and so we can say met flat button, and this can have a router link, and this router link could be or would be admin, and then we name it admin, and then we can see we have here our button. If we click it, we go to admin overview. If we go to login, we go to login. So the next thing that we want to do is we can add here our new shell. We can navigate into our front end, And then what we want to do is we want to create our new component for displaying all users. So we can say with our Angular CLI ng-generate, then we say component, and we want to go into our components folder, and then we want to have a component that's called users or users component then. So you see it's created here with all our files, and we also want to create or to generate a new service in our services. And this should also should be called user service. So you see we have now here our services, and we can just put them in a folder, authentication service, and pull this in. And we can also add our user service here and move them into this folder. And we have the structure here, and then we can add our users component to our routes. So we can say this listens to path users, and we have our component, the users component that we just created, and now we can add here a new button, and we call this users. And we want to navigate to users, and then we can just add this as a CSS property here to this, and then just reload our page. And you can see we have a new button, users, and we go to our users page or our users component. So the next thing that we want to do is we want in our user service be able to get all our users. And herefore we can have a quick look at Postman, because we already have there our API requests, so we can look at this and just rebuild this. So we have, we can close all here. And then we open our get all users here, and we just hit send, and then we can see we are getting returned all our users or our object here. So we want to go against this route, and for this we can now add in our constructor our private HTTP, and then we go for HTTP client from Angular, and we want to have a method or a function findAll. And there we want to return an observable, and this should be of type of the data that we are getting here. So what we can do is we can make a new interface. So we say export interface user data, and just make this here. And so this is an object. It has items which are from type user array, and then we have to look what else we have. So we have here our items, our users, and then we have this here. So we can add this to our interface. So we can say meta or meter, and this object is having total. Let's copy this, and this is number. Then we have an item count, which is also number. We have items per page. We have total pages, and we have current page, and they are all of type number. And then we have our next object, which is links. And then we have first string, previous string, next string, and last string. And so now we have our interface that we need. And we can just say we want to return our user data, or from type user data. And then we return something. And what we want to have here is we want to have a page. and we want to have a size. So the same like here, if we specify here page 2 and size 2, we want to have page 2 and size 2 displayed. So these are free. So the correct thing would be limit, I think, in nest.js. Let's see, yeah, limited to 1. So we can go with this. And size is the thing that we get from our later from our Angular Material Paginator. So we call it size and then we rename it here. Or we can, yeah. And so what we do now is we go for let params and we make some new HTTP parameters. So the same things that we had been using here. So we add them to our request and we can say params, and this is params.append. And then we want to append our page. And this is a string page. And then we have another params, and this is params.append. And then we go for limit. So for our nest.js, so this is just for our case. So if you work with Spring Boot or something different, then this might be page and size or something different. And we make from the size also a string. Then we can return our HTTP client or our HTTP. We want to make a get call and we want to hit /API/users as in Postman. And then we want to add our params that we created here. And then we can pipe this and map the outcome. So this is user data and this should be of type user data. We can just return it. And we can also say we want to catch error. We say error and then we throw an error. So we import them. So here, so this should work. We can verify this later. And then we can go to our users component, because now we have everything that we need for them, for this. And for this we can go to our material or Angular material table at first, because before we make pagination we need our table to display all our data. You can see we have here a basic material table. You have a header and you have all your elements. So what we need here is we need our met table module, and we can go to our Angular add module, import it here and use it. And then we can go into our user component and can add this here all. So what we need, at first we need a data source for our table. And so this could be from type UserData, and at first this is null. And then we can make example method init data source. And here we can use our service, so we can inject it here, private user service, and this is our user service. And then we can say this.userService.findAll, and so we want to go at first to page 1 and have 10 users displayed. Then we pipe this, and we can go for map, and then we have user data from type user data. And as last we can just go set our data source with the user data and import our map from LXJS. So this is not needed. And then, because this is an observable, we just can subscribe to it. And if we want, we could also just log it out so we see everything works. So we just say tab users and console.log users. And we need to make an error here. And now if we go to our component, we can open our console, we go to our users, and let's see why nothing happened. So we have to add this to our entry on init file or method or function. Then we can go to our users, and you see now we have here our object from data, user data, with all our items, with all our links, with the metadata. So we can use this now. So we have here our data source for our table. Then we can go again here to here, and we can see we have some properties here. So this is our data source that we need later, and we can define our column templates, and we can also go for our header, so columns to display. So we can do this here, or we can add this here, and we can go for displayed columns. So what we want to have displayed, and these are from type string, and we have an array, and we can just add them here. And these are just named after the properties that we have. So we have ID, we have name, we have username, and we have email and role. So these are all called after or named after our user. So we can see here we have name, username, email, password, and we have to add our role, of course. And then this could work. So semicolon. And then we can go into our HTML. And what we could do here is, for example, we can say h1. So to give it a heading and say all users. And we can style this and say text align center. And just have a quick look. Now we have here all users. And now we can go for div. And we want just to display our div if our data source has a value. So we go for env if data source is not null, then it is loaded, and you see we have initialized it here with null. So this will just be displayed if there is some data. So I can show you later why this is important. Then we have here our met table. And here, like we saw, this has or needs to be binded to our data source. And our data source will be our data source, and then we have our items that we want to display. And then we have some attributes, for example, like our table, let's see, for our header row. And we can make it like this, or we can go for met header row. And this needs a definition, and we can just go for here for columns to display. And then we can loop, or we can over it and say met row, and we say met row definition, and we say let row, and columns are columns displayed columns. So now we can add our cells to our table. We can see this here. This is basically our container. So we can copy this. And this will have a column definition. So this would be ID. Then this field would also be our ID. And we can just say let row. And here we want to display our row.id. So we could also name this something different like user or whatever we want. You can check this later. And then we can just do this for all our stuff. So we have ID, we have name, here, you know where we have it here, spaces. So this, then we can go for username, and we can go for email, and then we can go for our role, last but not least. Here, and so we can just see if everything is compiling well. So we go here, and there's an arrow, columns to displayed. And yeah, it's named displayed columns. That was my mistake, sorry. Displayed columns. And let's see if it's compiling. Yeah, it's compiling. Let's go to our table and we see, yeah, we get the data, we display it kind of way, but that's not really the right way. So let's see what have we done wrong. Yeah, so we are doing this a little bit wrong because we are just having here our met header cell. And so we have to replace this, because if not we are doing it all double away or third away, so this is a bit too much. So we do it just like this. Then we'll move it here. The definition. And here. And the same we have to do for our met cell. And here, and here, and here, and here. And now if we save it, we can look, and this seems right. So we have here our table, and we have all our data. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to paginate through it, because you see now we have displayed 10 users, like we said in our service, but how do we get the next 10 users or 13 users or whatever there are in the database? So we have 13 items in our database, so we would need a second page for this to be displayed. So what we can use here is a met paginator from Angular module, from Angular Material. So we can Google Angular Material paginator. And we can, okay, you can see this is like here, and this should also, probably there's an example, no, there's no example, with a table, so we can import this in our app.module here and add this to our imports. and now we can use it. And we can see here how we use it. Just go to a stack blitz. And wait till this is opening. And now we see we can have here our Paginator, and this can have some binding. We can make this outside of our table, and we can assign here some of our values from our data source. So we have a length, we have our page size. So you have to be careful because what is called here page size is called limit in nest.js, or in our pagination from nest.js that we built. So this is a little bit different. So we have to change this. We can make here some page size options. And we can just say 5, 10, 20, or 25, and then 100. The length is our data source dot meter dot total items. So we can see this here. We have our total items. We have a page size. And this is our data source dot items per page, or item count. Item count we can use. So we can copy this here. And we can use the items per page. This should be here. You can see it here. And then we have a page event. And for this, we can use, we can make our own event. What should happen if you click this? So we could say on paginate change, and then we give it our event from here. And now what's missing? Here. So this method is not here. So we have to add this. So we can copy this name. And we can say on paginate change. And what we get here is an event. And this will be a page event. You can import this from Angular Material. And then we want to do something. So we can just set this page event here. Page event. It's a page event. And then we can do some value here. We can say we have a page. And this will be our event dot page index. So you can see this is named like in our users. No, it's not. So you can see it here. 1 second. In the API, you can see it has some properties. And we have here our page index, the zero-based page index of the displayed list of items. So we have to check this because you see it's default to 0. And in nest.js, if we go to our page 0, then there should be nothing, I think. Because there, you see, 0 items, but you have to go to page 1 when everything is okay. So we have to increment this number that we get here. Because they are starting at 0, we are starting at 1, so this has to match. So the second thing that we want to get is our size. And this is we can get with event dot page size. And then we can just say page is page plus 1. And then we can call our user service and say we want to find all. We take in our page, we take in our size, we pipe it, and then we map the user data. And then we just set our data source to the new values. So we say user data source is user data, and this should be it. And the last thing that we need to do here is we need to subscribe to it, and then we can also just look what is being done here. And now you see we have here our paginator. We can click, and then it loads the next elements and the next page. And we could also, I think there was something how to add the last, to get to the last page. So let's see how it was called. Show first last buttons. If we want to show the first and last buttons in the UI to our user. So we can just add this here, and then we will see that we are having not just 2 buttons, but 4, so we could paginate to the last page. For example, if we go now with 5 users, we go to the first page, and now we are on page 4. So now we have all our users, and a little bit we have to fix here. You can see our links are a little bit broken because normally we go against API, so we have to change this also. We go into our API folder, and we can see in our user controller we are specifying our basic or basis route in English, I think, here for our endpoint, and so we have to add here an API since we changed this. So we can just make a little quick overview of what we have done. So we have another button users here. We have a table from Angular Material with all our data displayed. We can paginate through the data. We can choose how many items should be on a page, and we will always make a request to our backend. So let's commit our changes. So we can say git add -a, git commit, and we say V-09 for our story. So you can later, if you go to the GitLab repository, you can just search for the commits and go to V-09, and then you see what has been done. So we say added usersComponent to display all users in a material table with paginator, and added dropdown or select to the menu or menu bar, whatever. So we commit this. We can push this to our upstream branch. Just copy this and push it. And what we can say now is we want to close our feature, so we can just say git-flow feature finish, and this will bring it back on develop. So it brings back our feature V-09 to our develop branch. You can see it here now. Now we have merged our feature into develop, and we can push our develop branch. So we can now check against our Trello stories. So what we have, we can navigate through the table. So we have a table with all our users. We have a pagination with size and page. We are using Angular Material, and we can change the menu to a drop-down for our login and register button. So this is done, and so we move this to our next lane here.